Yeah, section.
Yeah. Yeah, so come on, Dave.
Well, let's see. Okay, we're going. Oh, okay.
Whoa,
Great stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. We were at the college. I was gonna say. Another neighbor called me. But I missed that. Oh, I was amazed. I watched that tree down. My mom was still sitting there in the front of the house.
Yeah, I need to focus
David,
here.
thank you for all the stuff you do. That's my map.
And some of these.
can do it in another sign, I'll do it next year. Or you know what, take it over to Susan. But that will go, yeah. No, that shouldn't be
All right, right, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, you know, we have yeah, he's got a whole bunch of,
Can I have your attention, please? It's 7:04 and we should get going. Where's our president? Oh, there he is.
I met that after the room. Before the end of the meeting, hopefully we'll meet this afternoon. You know what, we'll work on a story and we'll sell it and it'll be great. Just wanted to thank everyone for coming. This is our third, shall we say, hybrid AGM. So thank you for coming. Once upon a time, we used to get 75 to 100 people, and somewhere along the line, either I'm not a big enough draw, or COVID has affected the way neighborhoods get together. But this is a positive turnout. I'm grateful for everyone to come out. This is kind of our time for the board to be accountable for kind of how we spend our time and tell you about some of the work we've done, and also to receive some direction from you on sort of what types of events or ideas you'd like to see happening in the community. So we did put online the agenda. I mean, the shorts of it is that first we'll have a presentation from Hydro. Then Damien will present from stage 2, and then there'll be the business part of then I'll do my state of the community address. Then it will be the business portion of the meeting. I ran into the counselor last night, and she was disappointed that she wasn't going to be able to join us because she's chairing her Ottawa Community Housing meeting tonight. But then she's like, "Oh, I could be done around 7:30 or so, so I'll just drop in." So maybe the counselor will drop in and we'll get the state of City Hall from the counselor. So perhaps I'll just turn it over to Susan and her team from Ottawa Hydro. So we thought it would be good to have a presentation from Ottawa Hydro, in part because over the last little while, it seems we've had a lot more power interruptions, whether it be the various windstorms that we've had over the last couple of years, as well as our friends who are making our community better, have taken out our power twice and this year. So maybe it's kind of a timely some timely information for us. So I'll turn it over to sorry, David. Was that you from stage 2? Is it?
Probably Damon.
Okay, perfect.
Thanks, Ian, and thank you, everyone. We're so excited to be here with your community association this evening. Like Ian said, it's very timely for us to be here. This week is emergency preparedness week, so what better time than to have us tell you how we're keeping Ottawa connected. So my name is Susan. Of course, I'm with Hydro Ottawa, and I just wanted to present the fellow panelists that are here with me today. Joseph will be talking about the different types of power outages we encounter, building resiliency, and what our grid is like. Randy is good as our safety partner, so he'll be talking to you about preparing for emergencies with whether that's emergency kits or generators. And then Jan is here, and he will be talking about our tree trimming program and vegetation management. So our presentation will run approximately 30 minutes, and then we'll have time for questions at the end. Just to reiterate what Ian said. So we know that climate change is very much real and impacting Ottawa. Over the last couple of years, we've seen a lot of extreme heat, severe windstorms, ice and snow, and that's not going to change. So what we need to do is to be prepared. And this evening, that's exactly what we're going to let you know, is how Hydro Ottawa is preparing the grid and how we can help prepare the community as well whenever you have a prolonged outage. And so with that, I'll turn it right over to Joseph to talk a little bit about the different types of power outages we use.
Awesome. Thank you, Susan. And of course, welcome everyone and thank you for having us this evening. It's super important that that we come out and talk to you. We just, give you a bit of a lay of the land and what we're dealing with, what we deal with at Hydro Ottawa. So as Susan said, my name is Joseph Muglia. I'm the Director of System Operations and Grid Automation at Hydro Ottawa. My group is, along with my colleagues here, we are directly involved when there is a power outage, when there's any sort of interruption across the entire service territory. It's our teams that are directly involved in getting power back on and restored. So it's a big job. It's certainly something we don't like to see happen, but of course, as we've seen in the last while, the bigger storms that are affecting our communities seem to be happening in greater frequency. Some of the storms that we've been dealing with, for instance, they're 10-year, 20-year storms. We've been seeing them happen every 3 months. So I guess that's just a testament to how things are changing and how we need to be prepared as well. So when we encounter a power outage, we often hear from our customers, why did my power go out? Right, and there could be a number of reasons why your power goes out, but I'm going to sort of outline sort of our top 4 reasons why things are interrupted. And the first one, of course, I think everyone is pretty used to by now, and that's adverse weather. So adverse weather is something that affects us in greater frequency, as I said, lately. Big storms, whether it's windstorms, it's the ice storm like we had just a couple of months ago, snowstorms like we had just before Christmas. They're all extremely impactful and usually tend to take out our conductors or take out the poles and the things that support our conductors. So that's probably the biggest thing that we experience here in the Ottawa area. The second one is called foreign interference. Foreign interference is sometimes as a result of severe weather, we'll get like a tree that will end up on our conductors, take our conductors and take out the power. It could be a squirrel that decides to go up into our infrastructure and unfortunately end its life most of the time. And, so things like that can also cause power outages. We get a lot of that. Even something as benign as like balloons from like a kid's birthday party, some of those like aluminum balloons that you see, those can also get up into our overhead conductors, short across a couple of them and take out the power, believe it or not. And one of the other main areas or main reasons why we've experienced foreign interference lately is motor vehicle accidents, car crashes, sometimes work trucks that decide to go into our poles and take down our poles. That's been happening. We had a few of those last year. So that's also a big one. Out of our control, unfortunately, and unfortunately cause issues for all of you. Another big one is defective equipment. So as you know, our equipment is out there all day long, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's out in the different elements and it's aging, right? Even if it wasn't in the elements, even if it was underground, for instance, that infrastructure is aging on a daily basis. The increased use that we're seeing across the service territory on our infrastructure, just unfortunately it ages, it needs to be replaced. Hydro Ottawa has a very extensive and very expensive replacement program that we undertake on a yearly basis, usually conducted in 5-year stints. We have very, very rigorous replacement projects, but unfortunately, sometimes, we just can't keep up with the failure rate. So certainly defective equipment is very impactful. And the last one I'd like to talk about is loss of supply. So with Hydro Ottawa, our main feeds come from Hydro One, our provincial supplier. From there, they come into our substations and then we distribute it across the city. But from time to time, you have Hydro One also losing power. And when Hydro One loses power, even if we don't have any issues with our infrastructure, if our feed is out, then we're out, unfortunately. So, and usually when you get a loss of supply, it's tens of thousands of customers that will experience a loss. So very impactful for us, certainly. So what are we sort of doing about all of this? Like there's a number of things that we are doing at Hydro Ottawa to help with resiliency, to help with our reliability. And I'll just quickly outline some of the things that we're looking at. Because of course, demand is increasing. The more we talk about it, and you probably hear it in the news, you hear it in like local groups and on the internet, this electrification of everything, right? So you've got vehicles that are electrified now. You've got EVs across the service territory, across the city. But there's additional things that people are looking at doing, whether it's big institutions that want to switch over to all electric rather than natural gas, and reduce their carbon footprint, or it could be even homes that want to switch to electrified heating, for instance. All of that, of course, creates more of a demand on our system, right? So, and then layer on top of that the usual population growth, whether a community grows like outwardly or it grows upward, as you see over here. I was taking a drive around before this meeting, and I see the new towers that are being built. Those condo towers where there used to be maybe 20 homes are now thousands of people, and all of those people need electricity, right? So that creates more demand and just more load on our infrastructure. So what are we doing? So Hydro Ottawa has, again, like we've got fantastic engineers that work for us. Yan is part of the group where a lot of that design and that analysis for the city goes on. And we work hand in hand with city planners and city engineers as well to make sure that we know where the growth parts are in the city. And we're keeping up to, what their plans are as well. Because if they're planning subdivisions and they're planning population growth and intensification, we need to know about it so that we can design to support that extended growth. We're also, we're dedicated, Hydro Ottawa is very dedicated to providing safe and reliable power. So when we're building, when we're designing, we build the safety into those designs to make sure that like the design is safe and that it's being effectively and most efficiently, distributed across the service territory so that it's safe for everyone in the neighborhood, right, under normal circumstances. Sorry, I've got some notes just to keep me on track. Otherwise, I'm gonna wander, and this will take all night. So another thing I wanted to talk about a little bit is storm hardening. So we've learned a lot. Every storm that we get into, whether it was the derecho at the end of May last year, or it's the snowstorm that we had right before Christmas, or the ice storm that we just went through where we thought we had things under control and then the weather didn't change like it was supposed to change for us. Things got worse and we had trees coming down literally across the entire service territory, which was something that the forecast never told us, right? The forecasts were telling us that the weather was supposed to get better, the temperatures were going to start warming up. Instead, they stayed stable, and we got an ice buildup, which we didn't expect, which of course took down a lot of trees onto our lines. So what are we doing about that? I know that Yan will be talking about our tree trimming cycles. in just a little bit. So we've got a very robust tree trimming program that goes on throughout the city, so that we've got our, our trees, our beautiful trees in this city under control and they don't affect our wires. We're also increasing our system inspections across the city. More now than ever before, we're getting people, resources out and making sure that we're doing those inspections so that we can find issues before they happen, right? So, and some of those inspections will include like infrared scanning, so things that are not readily available or readily visible to us. Infrared scanning can help us determine where there's hot spots, and that can't be seen unless you've got this very technical equipment. That will help us determine, where those issues are before they actually happen, so that we can get there, do maintenance or do repairs or replacements as needed. And also another thing that we're upping is our communication to our stakeholders. Again, we've learned a lot in the last few storms. I know that my communication friends that are with us certainly lived through a lot of the communication efforts that we need to do. And of course, every storm is different. We communicate in different ways, but whether it's social media or direct contact with our counselors, we're trying to increase those lines of communication so that the communities like yours have better information and can get better prepared. So that's really what I wanted to talk about at the beginning. I'm going to hand it over to Randy Hopkins. He'll talk a little bit about safety and just being prepared.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for having us. So first off, I kind of wanted to talk about our own website. So Hydro Ottawa has a website. We have a lot of resources that you guys can use. You can go in and look at. If you go into the search bar and you type in emergency preparedness, it'll give you options on the type of dwelling you live in, and you can click on it. It'll give you an idea of what to have for an emergency kit. Now, if you look at the back table back there, we have sheets of paper that will for different options. So if you're in high rise, if you're in in a home, or even it talks about an option for a business. So I won't get into too much detail because it all is there if you guys want to look at it. But things to have is like, a lot of people don't think of is a manual can opener, because you're going to want to have non-perishables just in case we come into a situation like this. Having canned food is always a good option. But I know myself, for a while, I only had a plug-in can opener, and during an outage, those things work fantastic. So it's just something to think about, right? Other things are making sure you have batteries. So for my wife and kids, we have a drawer in our house that we know if there's a power outage, everything is there. So we have a screwdriver, a pair of pliers, different size batteries, flashlights. And with young kids, flashlights turn into weapons. So that's also another thing to watch out for. So make sure you're staying away from arguments when you guys have those flashlights in your hand. Another thing, sump pumps. Now, from my understanding that some of you may have sump pumps in your house. So I unfortunately had a sump pump years ago where it went defective. It was an old style, didn't have a battery backup or an alarm on it. So we were away for the weekend, didn't even know we had a power outage while we were gone. So the power went out, and then when the power came back on, I guess whatever happened, the sump pump went bad. And it was due to a lot of rain, lightning. So we had, and I think it was about 3 feet of water in my basement. So again, young kids, they think indoor pools, so you got to keep them out of that. So there are better options. There are newer options out there, right? So you have sump pumps with, they have battery backup. They have an alarm. So if the power goes out, an alarm will go off. If your battery is getting low or defective, even if it's plugged in, it will go off and notify you. So it really just saves a lot of heartache down the road. Just that if it's something you guys have, just look at updating it. It's a good option. I know for myself, in the house I just moved into, first thing we did was replace the sump pump, and I think we got ours from like Home Depot. It was a couple $100, like I think $200. So it sucks to put that money out, but trust me, in the long run, if you run into a problem, it saves heartache down the road. So I had the privilege of, well, not the privilege, but I had the opportunity to go around with some of our external contractors during the ice storm that we just had in April. So I'm going to get into talking about generator safety. because there was a lot of concerning things that I saw when we were going from house to house to house. Now I know everybody knows about generators and where to use them, where not to use them, but I can guarantee you not everybody knows that. So there was 3 situations where I arrived at homes where 2 of them were in a garage that was closed, running. So exhaust will find a way into your house inside your garage. So it's not a good option. The worst was we had an older lady had one in her house that her son had come and set up for her, and it was inside her house in her laundry room, plugged into where the dryer plug was. CO detectors were going off when we arrived. Very, very scary situation because she wasn't feeling well when we arrived. And luckily we got a call saying we needed to go check on this house because the power was out. So some of the things to think about: generators, they need to be outside. They need to be at least a meter away from your house. And I recommend, if you're going to put it out front of your house, put it around the side of the garage, just so exhaust will have to find a way. It's got to go around a corner and then go through your garage, which is very unlikely. So if you guys are going to use a generator, which are great options, you want to make sure that you have extra fuel. You want to make sure that it is fueled up. You want to make sure that last storm we had, I have one that's got a remote start. So I left the switch on, not realizing that there's a little red light that flashes saying it's ready to turn on whenever you're ready. Went to go turn it on. My wife's like, anyways, I won't get into that. The battery was dead. So we all make mistakes. I make more than the normal person, but I'm okay to admit to it. So make sure that it is in the off position. Turn it on when you need it, and even if it's just a switch, just say, you know what, your remote start will work. Just some things to think about. Again, please, if you're going to use them outside of the house, away from your garage door, close your garage door. Don't leave it open a little bit with it running inside. It's going to find a way into your house, right? There are other options as far as generators go that we learned in our last meeting. I learned that there are battery packs that you can purchase, and you can have them charged. And I believe it's about 8 hours.
It just
Depends. The only downside to that is when you're done your 4 to 8 hours, however long it lasts, you got to charge it. Well, you don't have power in your house and you run into a generator to charge a battery pack. So it's kind of a toss up, right? Good options if it's a couple hour outage, no problem. But when you get into a longer one, it's always nice to have that jerry can where you can fill up your gas and get going again. As far as my stuff, I think I've gone through it all. Is there anything else? Are you guys good? Move on.
Yeah, sure.
On the safety front, remember your ear guards for your gas generator.
Yes. Yeah.
You need ear guards.
Your plugs, right?
Well, the whole kit
Whatever,
and caboodle.
yeah.
Or like, they are loud.
Yep.
They don't really come with a muffler.
Correct. Absolutely. Another thing is, if you guys during a storm, you see any down power lines, pick up the phone and call us. I know that you guys, there's bell lines that could be down, power lines. It doesn't hurt to give us a call. We'll come out and check it no matter what it is, and stay clear, right? They say if there's a down line, it's stay a school bus away. So I think it's like 30 feet. Yeah. So just another thing to think about, right? Because
like in the news, it's interesting, like, but there's that young man that was executed, and there's a hydro line in the head. How can that happen? Like, how is that regard to happen?
Okay, sure. Very, very unfortunate. That was not a contractor of ours by any means. That was a contractor that was hired by a homeowner. And from my understanding, not the first time that company has been out to trim those same hedges. So the problem is that there are contractors that are approved to be around power lines and some that are not. Like, you've got to be certified to. I'm sorry?
Why are the lines intentional?
Well, unfortunately, people plant hedges where there's power lines. Like, I can assure you that Hydro Ottawa never plants a tree, especially near our power lines. It's always someone else, whether it's a homeowner or it's the city, right? And there's beautification programs that are ongoing, but yeah, that's a really, really unfortunate situation.
And it's just, you know, it shows the important, first of all, the danger of working around anything, because there's a limit of approach. You don't even have to be touching that wire. You can be close to it and you'll make contact, right? So, yeah, just an unfortunate situation, and we'll hear more about that, I'm sure, you know, coming up.
We have a question online. In the interest of climate and storm resilience, are there plans to bury power lines as construction like LRT happens anyways?
Actually, we'll take all the questions at the end, just so we can get through the presentation, because
Okay.
some questions might be answered as we continue.
Yeah,
All right.
for sure. So I mentioned earlier that I'm involved with the System Operations and Grid Automation Group in Hydro Ottawa. I also mentioned that my team is directly involved in the restoration of power when things happen. So I wanted to get through sort of what goes on during a power restoration, just for all of your information. And again, as I said earlier, every storm is a bit different. The way we dealt with the tornadoes is not how we dealt with the derecho, which is not how we dealt with, you know, this recent ice storm. Everything's a bit different, just the way it transpires. And what happens is usually, for instance, the derecho in late May, that hit the entire service territory. It tore the entire service territory up from end to end. Like when we looked at our outage map, we could not believe the devastation after like a 15-minute storm, right? It was unbelievable. And so what happens is the first thing we need to do is do the damage assessment. Now, when you have your entire service territory destroyed, it's difficult to do a damage assessment. When you've got a localized power outage or a localized storm, even the tornadoes were so much less impactful and so much easier to deal with, because they sort of carved a path through the city rather than this widespread destruction. And so what happens is we do damage assessment first, so we know where to send the crews and we know in what order to send the crews out. And so that could take anywhere from like a couple of hours to do that damage assessment to days. And in the derecho and even this last storm, the ice storm, it literally took days for us to cover the entire area to figure out where, you know, we needed to send the crews first. Now, we had a jump on it. We started the restoration process anyway, just because we would have been so much longer if we didn't. So we started the restoration process actually before we did a full damage assessment. But what we need to do is get out, figure out what we do first so that we can minimize any dangers to public and our own crews, of course, because, you know, if there's, as Randy mentioned, if there's down power lines, we need to tend to those first, because we don't want any kids or any of us even going close to those power lines if they're on the ground and they're still energized. So what we usually do is we'll do that damage assessment first, and then we'll send out crews to the areas that are sort of priority and take, you know, priority as critical. So that could involve like emergency services, hospitals, water and sewage treatment plants, schools, and some of the larger neighborhoods as well. That's what we'll tackle first in order to try to get our numbers down as quickly as possible. And then from there, what we do is we'll start repairing lines in, you know, some of the smaller communities to the point where we're working our way down systematically to individual customers, right? Which oftentimes, believe it or not, when we've got, you know, 100 or 200 customers left, those are the most difficult, believe it or not, to restore, because we're going to individual customers to figure out what the issue is and what we need to do. It reminds me of just after the derecho, like I heard a lot of the comments coming in and a lot of intel coming into Hydro Ottawa about, you know, the devastation and everything else. So you only can take in so much of what you're hearing, and then you get in your car and you go out to see what's going on. And when I remember driving through the Pine Glen area and seeing like 3-foot diameter trees on their sides on top of our infrastructure. It's like, okay, this is why it's taking so long. We've got to get those trees removed first and then get our lines back up in the air. And that is where people don't understand. Even us in the office don't understand, like, why is this taking so long, right? Because even we get frustrated and you know, anxious about, like, we got to get this power on. we have no idea what's going on in the field, and it's very complex. The problem is that our system is extremely complex, very integrated as well. Some of the larger lines you see, off in the distance is what is feeding your local area here, right? So if that goes out, you're out, it's a lot of work to get that back and get that restored. And that's why it takes the time that it does. As Randy mentioned, a lot of time there are power lines down on the ground. Just, you stole my thunder a little, sorry, it's fine. No, do stay away from those. If you see anything on the ground, even if you're not sure if it's our stuff or it's Bell or something, please give us a call, let us know. Chances are we do know, but it never hurts to just double check and make sure that we know. As well, what a lot of people don't know, and to be honest, before I started working in this industry, I didn't know either, is that when you've got an overhead service to your house or your business, you actually, the homeowner or the business owner owns that connection to the house itself or the business, right? If that's damaged, that has to be repaired by an electrician and has to be inspected so that we can come back and connect your power and restore your power. And we can't do that until that repair is done. So if there is, if you ever encounter that situation, please make sure that you're getting to, you're calling an electrician so that you can have those repairs done. And that just speeds up the restoration process for your individual home. All right. Cool. That's all I wanted to say about restoration. I'll turn it over to you.
Yes, vegetation. So trees and power line, like water and oil, they don't mix very well, right? How many trees do you think we trim every day? Hundreds? Yeah.
Thousands, tens of thousands.
Well, tens of thousands per year. So we trim about 240 trees per day, 30 trees per hour. I mean, my arm is sore. But that's 60,000 trees every year that we trim. That's a lot. We have, it's not just one individual that does this. We have a whole teams of contractors that do this for us. But it's very important to keep the trees away from the power lines. Tree contacts cause fire, and it essentially damages our equipment in the long run. So we try to keep a 3-meter distance for the vegetation from our conductors. As Joseph said, I mean, trees around power lines is everybody's responsibility. If you see a tree that's close to it, that's close to a power line, let us know. We'll come out, we'll have an assessment, and if we need to trim it back, we will trim it back. Never cut it yourself, right? Oh, sorry. I walk around a lot. Never trim trees around or branches around power lines yourself. Always use a qualified arborist to do so, qualified to do the trimming around lines, and they'll make sure that they have the proper security and notify us to come out and isolate the circuit for them to do the work. All trees are trimmed on a 3-year cycle. So we do cycles around the neighborhood. Your neighborhood is on your ward is on the 3rd-year cycle. So at the end of Q2, starting Q3, so June, July, you're going to be seeing us in the area, or our contractors trimming the vegetation around our power lines. Our arborists and our inspectors, their industry, they use industry best practices, and they're qualified to do the work around that. That's it.
I've got a tree on mine, and the boys are very good at it.
They are.
So I have no complaint.
Excellent. Thank you for that.
They're well, every second or third year.
Okay. Yeah, it's 3 years.
But
Trees grow at different rates, so sometimes they can come back a little bit early.
I mean, the tree looks horrible when you stand back or front,
Yeah.
but I mean, it has to be done. But they do a very good job.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Thank you.
And I'm just gonna close us off with talking about how you can stay connected and how we're connected to you. So like, I can't remember who mentioned this already, I think everybody. Our website is a really good source of information. So for anybody who wants to visit our website, it's hydroottawa.com. And if you want to go and find the specific emergency checklists and kits and resources, that's hydroottawa.com/be prepared. So our website is where we update you with a lot of information. So year round, when it's not storm season, you can go and find information about what's happening in the world of energy, sustainable energy, renewables. You can read about your rates. You can read about how to make payments. So our website is very useful tool. One thing that we have introduced, since we've made some changes since the duration went off through the course of the last year, is when there's a major outage, we have introduced a storm page. So basically you still visit hydroottawa.com, but like some of you may have seen during the spring ice storm, instead of seeing a regular web page, you will see a Storm Alert Center. So basically that's where all the information you need right at that moment is available to you. So it tells you how to prepare. It gives you the phone numbers of who to call. It has pictures and infographics that show you what do you own, what do we own, what are we responsible for. And it also has information like what neighborhoods are we working on and what the numbers are. So our storm page is activated whenever we have a major outage. If you're looking for something else that particular day, you want to know how can you pay your bill, you just click on the site that says, take me to the main site, and then you can find all the other information. So that's one of the things that we've done to improve our communications with you. During a major storm, one of the main ways we communicate in addition to our website is through Twitter. So we will put all of our information out on Twitter as it relates to the storm. A couple of things that we've also done and tested is weather alerts. So we send weather alerts out now when there's any sign of weather that's coming, where we see that it might cause harm to our system. For the ice storm, we sent a weather alert the day before it hit, just saying, you know, severe weather is coming, you should be prepared for an outage. These are the steps that you can take. If we have your contact information up to date, you're already on our list and we'll send emails automatically. If your contact information is not up to date, it's difficult for us to be able to communicate with you. So one of the ways that you can update your contact information is again on our website. We have a tool called My Account. So it's basically an online portal that you just kind of register for, and then just make sure that in your profile section, you update your phone number and your email address, because we will include weather alerts for that. If we were doing work in your neighborhood, for instance, and your residence was going to be impacted by a planned outage, then we would also send you an email or an SMS text message just saying, there's a planned outage for this day, it'll last this many hours. So you don't have to take any action. All you have to do is keep your information updated. So you could do that through My Account. And we now have an app, which serves the same function if you want to do everything from your phone or your mobile device. So if you just go to the Apple Store or the Google Play Store, just look up Hydro Ottawa. We have a mobile app that you can download. So these are just some of the ways that we communicate with you, and some of the ways that you can communicate with us through social media. And that formally concludes our presentation, and we will take questions. We might as well start with the question that's on the screen, and that's for you, Joseph.
Great.
In the interest of climate and storm resilience, are there plans to bury power lines, especially as construction like LRT happens?
So I know that, so it's an extremely difficult balance with what our plans are to replace infrastructure and also being able to take advantage of, you know, ongoing projects where we could potentially underground. I know that we did that on, I want to say Laurier or Slater downtown. I remember when I first started with the company about 5 or 6 years ago, there was a project where, and I believe it was either Laurier or Slater, one of those streets. And we were looking at installing a brand new pole line. And it's like, so a few of us talked and it's like, well, why would we do that? Why wouldn't we just take that opportunity to underground, right? Costs a bit more. This was I remember that was a joint project. I can't remember what was facilitating the construction, but it was a joint project with the city. And we, sorry? Elgin. Okay, there you go.
Suggesting Elgin.
Yeah, okay.
Part of street beautification.
There you go. And so, I mean, we were going to replace poles, so that's ridiculous, right? Let's at least have one more conductor that's underground. So undergrounding is incredibly expensive. But having said that, we are undertaking a huge undergrounding study that's going to be kicking off probably, is it?
It's already
this month?
started.
It's already started. Okay, great. So that's underway. That study is going on with a consultant that will help us look across the whole service territory and see what makes the most sense to underground. Not necessarily will it be in this neighborhood or the neighborhood I live in, for instance, but there is that overall cross the service territory study that's going on now to take into account like what makes sense based on what gets destroyed with all the storms that we're having, and where should we be putting those investment dollars in underground. So we hear from all of the community groups that we visit, why are you not undergrounding more? Again, very expensive for what we want, for what we expect to get. We have a finite capital plan, and your electric rates are tied to that capital plan, unfortunately. So, you know, we have to be careful with how we spend our money and what we need to replace as well. So it's integrated, it's complex, but we have much smarter people than me working on that. So, you know, it's something that we do on an ongoing basis. So we will definitely be looking at what we should be undergrounding.
We have a question in the back.
I actually have three questions. They're all interconnected.
Sure.
So, Woodpark is a neighborhood in transition. There's a lot of older homes in there, a lot of development pressure on the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Unlike Westboro, which was redeveloped when people built gasoline cars, we anticipate a lot more electric vehicles in Woodpark. So number one, can you comment on the status of the existing infrastructure in Woodpark as it relates to our neighborhood?
Right.
Number two, are there any plans to upgrade that, given that there will be ongoing development? And number three, what's your time frame for electrification? If everybody bought an electric car tomorrow, I don't think Hyper will do that.
No, I can tell you,
That's correct.
we will not,
So, and the last
nor will the
one
province.
is if you install solar panels, it's my understanding, the system exceeds 10 kilowatts, the owner has to do a neighborhood grid assessment, not Hyper. Why is that?
Okay, so that would be the only question I'm not sure I can answer. That might be beyond, unless you know anything like that.
So I'll start there. For anything that we can't answer today, do email us and we will find the right expert. So you can email us at cr@hydroottawa.com, and then I'll let Joseph answer the other parts that he can.
That came from an electrical engineer or something, something like that.
Yeah, that is beyond what I usually cover in my section of the company, but that's an interesting point.
I mean, given the fact this neighborhood's gonna be upgrading.
Right.
I would like to see net zero as a minimum development standard.
Right.
Because Westboro has a lot of beautiful homes. They're gonna be absolutely fine.
Based on electrification,
Net zero homes,
right?
I need between $50 and $60 with the electricity. Somewhere in there, plus your recharges. Gas, I use 3, 5, 7 homes.
Interesting. So Woodpark itself, I did have a drive around before the meeting, quite a beautiful area. We are currently working with an engineering firm based out, I believe they're based out of Canada, if I'm not mistaken. And they're helping us with the use of AI, figuring out where we believe intensification of EVs will be across the city. And so with the results that they come up with, we'll be able to start targeting the areas where we believe there will be like more of an uptake of EVs. So that study is new. It's probably about a year old, I want to say. The results of that are with our engineering department right now. So we'll start looking at, you know, what areas we expect would need some upgrade as far as infrastructure goes, right? More than likely, like if you're, and again, I don't delve into the EVs, I'm more on the infrastructure side, but EVs, I believe, it could potentially require a bigger panel in your house, depending on what size panel you have in your house. It may be undersized, it may not, but that would be part of that study to figure out, you know, where do we have to put those infrastructure dollars and how does that all work? Like, who pays for it, right? I think that's going to be one of the bigger questions that's going to come up in the coming years. It's like, how do we pay for all of this? The electrification of everything, for instance, we are kicking off another study, what electrification looks like by year 2050. Now, Hydro Ottawa itself has made the moonshot of being net zero by 2030. That doesn't mean, of course, our entire city is going to be net zero by 2030, but we are putting plans in place now based on what our 2050 projections look like, so that we can start building toward that electrification. And it doesn't mean, like, we're not saying that we necessarily agree or disagree with full electrification of everything, because that does stress our system, but we need to prepare for it, right? So that is something, again, that study is just kicked off, like literally this week. It was the first meeting I was involved with. And so we'll see what those results look like, and what we have to, like, what areas we have to upgrade, and also like, what does storage look like? Because if you're going full electric and everything, including heating in the middle of the winter, is now dependent on electricity, you need some alternatives as far as like not only generation, but also storage, right? So, because undoubtedly incidents are going to happen, storms are going to happen, and outages are going to happen. So it plays into, okay, so how are we preparing as Hydro Ottawa for that? But also, how are the residents preparing, right? So there's a resilience that we all need to up a little bit, because if we're relying 100% on an electric grid, we have to have backup plans for, maybe 72 hours, for instance. How are you preparing yourself at home so that if your power does go out, that you're sustainable for, 3 days, for instance, right?
With one school of thought that car sharing will be coming in the next 5 years, I'm not sure in Canada. But that may, so I'm not assuming every house has an electric vehicle.
Right.
One electric vehicle for 10 houses.
Right.
I don't know if that's part of your calculations or not, but I would suggest you look at neighborhoods like Woodpark, where they're going to be intensifying, where they're developing, where most permits are being issued.
Right.
Construction. That's what we'll find here in Christine.
Yeah, very good points.
It's, when I heard you were coming, I was thinking about 3-4 years ago, they were getting fired at the Lincoln substation.
Oh, yes.
And so
My department.
maybe you'd like to share how that be, because you guys got a lot of guys over there working.
Yeah, absolutely.
How that's progressing, and whether that will provide more resiliency for our own community as, you flip the switches back on after these major outages.
Yeah, I can't even begin to explain the complexity of the electric system, the electrical grid, especially because it's an amalgamation of a bunch of different, systems like Gloucester and Canada and everybody like Nepean. We all became one, and of course, all of those smaller utilities had their way of building things, right? Lincoln Heights was an incredibly unfortunate incident that happened. That fire was a scary one for us, because our infrastructure is a couple of floors down, right? So you see the station from the road, but there's so much going on, like two floors down, to the point where there's not even cell reception down there. So if that fire was in the lower part, or even where it was, like it became very dangerous for our workers to get out, right? So we've done a number of different things at Lincoln Heights, spent a lot of money on the upgrade there, which just ended, I believe it was just last year that we finally finished everything at Lincoln Heights. A lot of additional safety measures have been put in there. There's loudspeakers that have been installed so that the crews know if there's any sort of incident. That's all connected back to our system office, so our system office knows on every floor what's going on at Lincoln Heights. But Lincoln Heights is it's a very important hub for us across like our territory, because it does allow for that switching between stations. So sometimes if you get an issue on the lines, say just out here, I see them like through this window. If there's an issue on one of those lines, in a lot of circumstances, and not everyone, But a lot of circumstances, we can isolate that piece of conductor and get the power flowing in a different location while those repairs are being made. That cuts down our outages immensely when we're able to do that, right? When we can reroute power, fantastic, because it provides a safe working environment for our crews so they can get on it right away. My people are involved with the switching of that power, so we make sure that it's isolated and it's safe, but it also provides power to all of you while those repairs are being made, right? So you could take like potentially a 6 or 7 hour outage, reduce that down to like 45 minutes or an hour while that's being repaired. So Lincoln Heights, very important to us that those stations are up and running and at their full potential. So that's probably all I want to say about Lincoln Heights. I hope it answered your question.
And then we have one last question.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. It's really interesting. You mentioned at the start about that one of the outages is when hydro one
Loss of supply.
Yeah, loss of supply.
loss of supply. Given our proximity to Quebec and their really cheap electric power, like is that a consideration? Like, do you ever look at that as an option of?
Can I take this one?
Yes, please.
So I used to work with a provincial regulator, and so Ontario and Quebec have many tie lines together. So as a province as a whole, the province does purchase a lot of electricity from Quebec.
Okay, so we're getting a physical advantage of that.
Yes, yeah, and some of these lines come directly into Ottawa, into our substation, so we do get the benefit.
So, and I just wanted to thank you. I know it's taken a bit of time, so I hope your meeting doesn't run late, but thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
And I'll also give you a thanks on behalf of the Woodpark Community Association. You know, when we set up this little session, it was probably in February, and first of all, we didn't know it was Emergency Preparedness Week, so we got that right. But little did we also know that we'd have a major ice storm and kind of.
We didn't know either.
Exactly, and apparently Environment Canada didn't either. But I can say that I used to work there. Anyhow, we actually, our neighborhood has been relatively lucky. We didn't get significantly impacted by the direct show, despite the fact that lots of the neighboring area did. And even this ice storm, we didn't have, we had some individual issues, but we didn't have the whole area. So I kind of feel like the next one, we're going to get hit. So everybody go home and get your little kit ready, because and you can blame it on me, but I kind of feel like that is coming. Anyhow, thank you for all your kind of practical tips, as well as the thinking on about the future. I mean, the take home for me, that drawer to put all that stuff in, good idea. The app on your phone, good idea. The school bus, I never heard that analogy before about the distance from a line. So some really good take homes there. So thank you very much, Susan and Joseph, Randy, and Jan for coming and coming on a nice night out like this and telling us about what we need to do to get ready for the next event.
Thank you.
Yes.
Oh, and just one other point. They left us with some lovely first aid kits. Shown in the back there by Vanna White. Anyhow, we will figure out some fair way of giving people the opportunity. I think there's 8 there. So there'll be some contest or something. People have to rake up a bag of leaves or something like that. We'll figure out how to distribute that. Yeah. Anyhow, thank you very much for coming, and that was very informative.
And I thank Ottawa Hydro, and I will say the website is really awesome. And if you hit the power outage button, you can see what the estimated time is, and if you keep tracking it. Like one time I kept on flicking the switches, and my time kept on getting better and better. So it's not every time that you win. Just wanted to recognize the counselor, and how about if people are willing, we'll move the counselor up to, this is a nice time, and then we'll have Damien after, and then we'll hit the business portion of our AGM. So, Counselor,
Ian-
you want to give us a lovely update on what's happening at City Hall?
I'd love to, but I was just talking to Damon and he's got to get his kids to bed. Do you mind if he jumps ahead of me?
No, but he could have texted me back and told me that was his challenge.
Well, he was being polite and I just said, ah. He didn't,
I've met him before.
you know, he's polite. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll just we'll
Yeah,
we'll
let
go.
him go first. Let him go first.
Sure, and thanks very much, Teresa, for allowing that. For those who don't know, Damon is our contact person for stage 2 LRT. And we thought it'd be a good idea to get an update of what I'll call like some of the immediate choke points of the construction area from the Lincoln Fields area behind Edgeworth. The pending Richardson Richmond Road excavation, the station house, and then of course the wonderful temporary bridge that is currently Woodruff and Richmond Road. So those were my ideas. We'll see what Damon wants to tell us about. The floor is yours, sir.
You're muted, Dana.
Can't hear you.
No?
Nope.
1 second.
We can hear you now.
Oh, now we can hear you.
Oh, huzzah.
There.
Yes, antiquated technology. All right. I want to thank you, Ian, for the invitation. And Counselor, I always love listening to your updates. I may even still, depends on how things are going upstairs. Also, if there's some screaming, I apologize. We will untie them shortly. Okay, so we're here to talk about LRT and its relationship to Woodpark. I think you don't need me to tell you how much Woodpark is affected by the LRT construction. But then the other important thing to recognize is this is a community that will see so many of the benefits of it once this construction is finally over. Now we start at the beginning of this conversation over at the intersection of Woodruff and Richmond. And as Ian mentioned, there's the Woodruff Road temporary road bridge. And you can kind of see the edges of the steel plate here. But it's interesting because it's become such a function of everybody's experience in Ottawa that so many people, as I haven't really talked about it too much for a year, are asking, what do you mean the Woodruff Bridge? Like it's a bit of a loss, but alas, it has allowed for the excavation of the tunnel underneath Woodruff Avenue. And in fact, that excavation is complete and the tunnel is complete below. Now they're going to begin presumably on May the 26th. And at that point, we will be closing the north-south routing. You'll still be able to go east-west on Richmond Road. You will not be able to go east-west on Byron because it will be closed from about Knightsbridge and Compton up. It will take approximately 3 weeks. It will involve work day and night. And it will be reinstated to the original configuration. And that's what we will see once we finally remove that road bridge at the end of those 3 weeks. We'll have this intersection the way it was. Well, maybe not the way it was, because obviously you can see on either side of the bridge, it's still very much a construction. So that being said, we do anticipate this to look and feel a lot like it did when it was installed a few years ago. It was noisy.
it was challenging for some of the residents who live nearby. The Isner building was not yet constructed. And there were no people living in it. So there's that. However, it got done and it's worked brilliantly with minor issues. Now, when this occurs, I mentioned that we will have east-west continuing. However, if you wanted to go up Woodruff, you would not be able to do so, in which case you would be recommended to go around. Significantly, as with any traffic, there will be signs. This will not be a magical detour. You will follow that detour, and that's important to know. The other important thing to know is that pedestrian connectivity will be maintained in a north-south capacity throughout this closure, much like it was when it was installed. In this instance, pedestrians will be crossing east of the intersection, and that will be and that will allow for the community to still live and experience life throughout this closure. New Orchard Station, affectionately known as Ian McCallum's second home. They will note that PCL has taken control of the site. PCL is the station constructor. So what happens is Kev gets it ready, hands it over to the station constructor, and then they install the station and hand it back to Kev. They started mobilizing a few weeks ago, and we do anticipate currently the completion of New Orchard Station in fall 2024. Now, obviously, New Orchard Station isn't happening in isolation, and there is an extensive tunnel on either side of that. Well, you'll note over that time between now and fall 24, different areas of that tunnel getting completed. The invert slab being the floor being poured, the walls and the roof. That's going to start happening. It's going to start getting backfilled. It's an exciting milestone, and it's exciting for those of you who have just been so amazing and living through this impactful work in front of your homes and in your neighborhoods. And my cautionary tale here is that just because it looks like it's done, it doesn't mean it is done. And the contractor did want me to remind everybody that even when it gets backfilled, this is still a construction zone. This is still an area where construction vehicles will be mobilizing, and it is not open to the public. That is an important thing. We always respect the signs and the fences. We don't want people getting hurt. I know there are a lot of children in the neighborhood, and I'm always very concerned about my kids. When Iona was under construction and my boy was only 1.5, like, boy, it was exciting to see him excited, but also the stress. So I thank you all for the caution and the attention to that. As we travel a little further west, here we find ourselves in the north of Lincoln Fields. And I think if you are part of Woodpark, you're aware that this is a very active area. What we have is many different elements of scope occurring. Here we find the portal of the tunnel, the station out here in the background. We are going to be connecting the guideway through some excavation from the portal to the station. We've got Lawn Avenue Parkette, we've got stockpiles, which means that there is a lot of hauling operations that are occurring. I want to take a moment and just mention something. Councillor Kavanaugh's office is so reactive to your concerns and problems when it comes to construction. And I want you to know that we are too at the city. When you guys post videos on Facebook, that's really helpful and it does help get the message out. But what it is not what is the challenge is I can't share that video with the people who can make a difference about what you're experiencing. Therefore, if you're able to send me an email, or Councillor Kavanaugh, if you prefer the email with the video, that would be helpful, and that will help us help you. Absolutely. And that's what we want to do. Lincoln Field Station, which looks so small out there in the background, but boy, when you're on site, it really blows my mind every time. Now that station construction is ongoing, and backfill operations will be underway until July. And that's part of those nighttime noise activities. And then, of course, work is continuing on the tunnel portal with the structures. Pardon me. With the structures, we're invert slab, that's the floor, you'll remember, and then the rebar and formwork for the walls. Now, they will continue to work and connect, as I mentioned, the guideway excavation from portal to station. We're going to see in the fall that pick up anew, and that will include drainage, as well as the overhead catenary system foundations. So those poles need to be planted heavily in some strong foundations, and so those will be part of the works that we'll see towards the end of the summer and early fall, and that all precedes track installation. Now, we do have work underway that is supported by the Ambleside Detour. And that's where, since September 11th, 2022, the westbound Richmond Road detoured up New Orchard, Ambleside, McEwen. And that detour in total is anticipated for 16 months. We will see how that goes, and that is consistent. And this detour, what it does is it does help make space available to the constructor for some important cut and cover work on sections that haven't been connected as of yet. Now, there is a proposed detour that is not yet finalized or confirmed. You'll note proposed and draft in many places. My fear was, if this presentation got in the hands of someone who didn't listen to me deliver the presentation, they might think that this thing was officially, and it very well might be, but it isn't as of yet. And I like to talk in truths, not in maybes. Now, the full closure of Richmond Road would mean that the eastbound traffic would also be routed, but instead they go up McEwen, Ambleside, and down New Orchard. This would be to allow for, and Ian mentioned that section of the cut and cover tunnel around Richardson. We've got a section of this tunnel that still needs excavating and connecting, and that's what that will support. And that we're talking about some of the last little sections of tunnel, and that's pretty exciting, because I remember talking originally about like the temporary sidewalk on Byron Avenue, so we have somewhere to walk when we're doing tunnels. And then here we are, a little section in Cleary, a little section over here, McEwen to Richardson. That's pretty significant. Anyway, no one else needs to be as excited about this as I am. And even if you were, I couldn't tell, because it's just me talking to me. COVID has taught me to listen to myself for hours on end. My wife has not appreciated that new skill. And so there we are. Once we do have a finalized plan on this, if we do, pardon me, I won't say it as if it is a fait accompli. If we get a finalized plan, then I will send the notices out via our MailChimp subscription distribution list. It will be posted on ottawa.ca. Counselor Kavanaugh will be sharing it with her extensive social media network and her incredible weekly newsletter. And that is going to complement the portable variable message signs that will also be advising motorists of what is to come. And this one would likely be approximately for 6 months if it were to occur. We'll leave it at that, and we'll revisit this if it's worth revisiting going forward. And you know, it is a busy area, and I don't think the 8 slides make me feel like it's not a lot. I mean, oh my gosh, it is so much. Basically, from Woodruff all the way to Lincoln Field Station, in that linear sense, you're surrounded on 2 sides, and that is, like I said, challenging now and incredible later. Later, an enhanced park. Later, 2 separate stations, 1 community, 1 commuter. It's going to be lovely. It will. An enhanced Lawn Avenue Parkette, that'll happen too. There's a lot going on, and I thank you all for your patience and your resiliency as it goes on. My email address is on the screen. I do hope to hear from you if there are problems. I want to remind everybody that sending me or Counselor Kavanaugh those videos or photos, that helps me action those problems. And in fact is really, really helpful. So thank you all so much. Counselor Kavanaugh, I believe I'm handing the floor over to you unless there are any questions.
1 sec, David. Does anyone have a quick question? Yes, I got one. And Michael?
It's a doozy, eh? Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you hear me from here?
I can, thank you.
Okay, I think the last time we spoke, I raised the issue of how did they test the waterproofing of the tunnel in the flood zone by the Ottawa River. And since then, we've seen that there's leaks in the Rideau, which is certainly nowhere near the river. So I still think that may be an issue. That how do we know that that's actually waterproof and will be shut down every time the river floods?
Right, it's not near the river, it's underneath the canal. So that is proximity to the water after Rideau. And how can we be sure? Well, there is a drainage system that is in place to address, and the walls also have been waterproofed. That is what our engineers have said is the way in which we are mitigating groundwater and overland water. Of course, nobody on the project team thinks that water and electricity are 2 very good things. I know Hydro Ottawa didn't focus on that, but we really want to keep those 2 things.
David, I just wanted to raise with you the issue when the Woodruff temporary bridge gets taken on, the issue of cut through traffic and how we can, shall we say, keep people say off of Woodlawn and Richardson, making the deke to get down to Richmond Road.
Okay, so I'm just thinking here. They will have a great challenge getting through Woodruff because they would have to cut out at Compton, no?
So I'm thinking of, say, South Nepean, Barhaven people coming down Woodruff, and instead of making the right to Woodruff North, then they make the left, say, onto Richardson, and then cut down, go onto Richmond Road, and then get onto the Parkway.
Right, but correct me if I'm wrong, hasn't Kev cut off the access from Richardson for general vehicular traffic?
So Kev really appreciates using Richardson to support their cement force.
Yes.
And
we did it to reduce traffic within Woodpark.
And so let's just say some days there's barriers and some days there aren't barriers.
I see what you're saying here.
And some days, like Beacon doesn't get around at the end of the day to put all the barriers back. And everyone's driving around, and if it isn't Richardson, then they just move to Hartley.
I suggest that we have Ottawa Police Services enforcement teams during those 3 weeks.
So
Controlling
there's
the
a couple-
neighborhood a little bit better.
There's a thought I have, and that's if this detour is in place, there's not going to be a way for anyone to get out or in to
Right,
Woodpark.
that's it, both these detours are going at the same time.
But
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
not really true, Damon, because I got off the bus a week ago
Yeah,
at McEwen, crossed the road and I'm walking down Edgeworth. And I saw a lady driving her car. She drove onto the sidewalk past those planters and then turned her right onto the sidewalk. I don't know where the heck she was going, but I think she was trying to get onto Richmond. So a lot of traffic still tries to get down Edgeworth onto Richmond Road. And if that detour comes into play, we're gonna see a lot of people trying to do that.
well, I mean, I'm shocked and I'm not shocked because boy, I think we spent like 6 months adding mitigation after mitigation after mitigation. I haven't heard from anybody since. I thought that we had actually fully stopped these wingnuts from driving up hills and over rocks and around planters and knocking down trees to get on a sidewalk. I mean, I guess there's no accounting for stupid, and I'm sorry to be so blunt. And if someone's doing it, then shame on you. I'm not upset about the way I've characterized them. I'm upset that people think they're more important than everybody else. So yes, that is a concern. And then what my intention to do here, and I want to thank you all for raising this, is I will bring this up with both my colleague Campbell Inwood, our manager of traffic within the bail office. I'll also bring this up with Jamie Robinson, my counterpart at KEV. And we'll discuss the challenges of infiltration within Woodpark. We'll discuss the barrels at Richardson. I don't think I have any more traction with the contractor about North Edgeworth. But Councillor, you and I, we can put our heads together on that one. But if we can do something to help mitigate these issues that you've seen during the previous detour, then that's what I want to do. Thank you so much for raising that.
Okay, thanks a lot, Damon, and hope your savages don't abuse you too much.
Well, they wouldn't be 4 and 6 if they were not abusing me all the time. Thank you all so much. I really appreciate your time, your great questions, most of all your attention. Have a great evening, everybody.
Thank you, Damon.
Thanks, Sam.
Thanks, Damon. Always a pleasure.
Councillor?
Yeah.
You'd like to share some insight of what's going on at City Hall?
Okay. Thanks, everyone. I didn't realize I thought it was all virtual. Sorry about that. I would have ran down there. I was coming back from Auriga Drive, which is where we have our board meeting, where I chair for Ottawa Community Housing. So, anyway, here I am. And hello, I don't know who's there. I can't see you. All I can see is a door. There, that's better. Thank you very much. That I appreciate it. Yes, lots of topics. Was council yesterday, and that was an interesting council meeting. You probably heard about it. One of the things that I was disappointed with was the high performance standards being voted down, and we're waiting for the province to put theirs in instead, which I thought was very sad. But that's the way it is. That's how votes go. You win some, you lose some. I did get a motion in, and it was related to surplus schools. The province put in their education bill that this is a bill that's an omnibus bill on education, a section about surplus schools and about selling them off. It had nothing to do with education. But you know, there are surplus schools, and normally it's a pecking order of who gets them. And the first ones to get offered a school that is no longer being used by a board is their coterminous board, which is perfectly sensible. We've got good examples of that, like Edward Bond, where it used to be Whitehaven. The next on the list is the municipality, and then it's the provincial government and the federal government. Well, they took that out. They put a bill in that said that takes out the municipality, which means it's one less opportunity for us to take some space that was community space because it was a school ground, and possibly use it for green space, or just keep it in some sort of format. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't, but that opportunity was lost. So I put forward a bill saying that we should keep the way it was for that opportunity, especially with intensification. These are opportunities where we can keep a bit of green space in an area that might be seeing more housing. So so that was something I initiated. I had a meeting this week on Britannia Beach. Just to let you know that the gull wires are going to come up this year. So we had a discussion on, different factors. We're also going to have more, as I did last year, try and get more garbage cans with lids, keep the birds out. The big problem is seagulls. Seagulls come, they poop on the water. So that's why we have to discourage them. Unfortunately, people actually feed them. We got to put more signs up saying, do not feed these birds. Do not let them hang around. They're not good news. So that's being worked on for this summer. And the wires will be colored green, so they'll be more visible for birds. So there'll be less issues with them running into it. I think the big issue this week also, or it was really more last week, but it's still hanging around, is garbage. And it's the curbside policy. That will be discussed at the next Environment Committee meeting on June 5th. So these are proposals. And I know there's questions on it, such as, what about bigger families? What about, people who have special needs that might require more garbage? And these things are all going to be discussed, and we can work on policies related to that. It is something that is being done by other municipalities. The bottom line is there's a lot of people that are recycling, and there's a whole bunch of people that are not recycling. And we're trying to work on those that are not. I've seen this, 75% of us do recycling, and we have maybe a couple of bags of garbage at most, or less. And but then there's others that just put everything in green garbage bags and put it on the corner. They don't do any recycling. The way things are going, our landfill site will be filled up in no time, and we need it to last longer. And if people did more recycling, did more separating of blue box and paper in the black box, that would help immensely. So we cut it off so that they can have they get tags, 2 tags a week, and you get 55 at the beginning of the year. So that will hold for the year. And I know there's been lots of questions about what about certain special circumstances. Those are all going to be discussed. Believe me, I think it'll be a very long meeting. It's to encourage recycling. It's being done in many municipalities, like Carleton Place is already doing it. Other cities are doing it, and it's been fairly successful for the same reason. People were not voluntarily recycling, not everybody. There's still that stubborn number that have refused. So we have to do something to encourage it. So there'll be plenty of discussion on that. And I hope we'll see more of it. And in terms of multi-residential, that's moving forward. That's something the city's been working on. In fact, as chair of Ottawa Community Housing, I can tell you we were talking about it this evening, about how more and more of the the Ottawa Community Housing multi-residential buildings are doing way better at recycling. And it's quite positive. And that is a big education process because you're working with new Canadians or working with people who've not done recycling before in many cases, but it's coming along. So if it can happen in a community where people are not as familiar versus the broader community, I think there's hope. So I think it'll move forward. What else? It is Emergency Preparedness Week. And I was visiting a building where, the basic stuff, and I'm glad to see that Hydro Ottawa was out here tonight. I'm doing a meeting with them. I think it's the 29th. We got it booked the 29th. It'll be in our newsletter tomorrow. And the neighborhood actually that was the most impacted was Glaber Park, though there was 2 other neighborhoods that were out as long as them, and that's my own neighborhood in Belltown. Not me specifically, but there was one street in our neighborhood and a couple of streets in Crystal Beach, which were out for more than 3 days. So, so they're, it's the why me? How's it that others got their wiring done first? I was listening to your pal, and we'll have the same questions over and over again. And I think they did a pretty good job. These are tough, and I think what we need to do is look at how can we prevent it. It's usually in neighborhoods with larger trees. Should there be some better trimming going on ahead of time without damaging the tree, of course. I mean, we don't want to wreck our canopy, but we may wreck our canopy when the tree branches get ripped off, because I've had a couple of forestry reports where they had to take out a tree because it was so badly damaged that it couldn't be saved. Now, if it had been trimmed very, thoroughly, maybe it would have been saved. I don't know. It's case by case. And we certainly want to keep our trees. So those are some of the things that are going on. It was great to have Damon here to cover off on the stage 2. We meet pretty regularly, though frankly, it's been so busy with committee meetings that I haven't seen him for a little while, but normally we do. Yeah, sorry, did I hear somebody?
No.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, so those are some of the things that are going on. Flood levels, not to be worried about. Water's going down. It peaked at Saturday and was not an issue this year in Bay Ward. Happy to report. So, so that's good news. Detours, plenty of them. You've already heard about them. And even bicycle path detours, which is partly because of the NCC work. And that's been a big headache as well. So anyway, I'll leave it there if anyone has any questions.
No questions in the room. Oh, hang on.
Hi, Teresa, I've got a draft email in process for you, and I think it's a win-win-win opportunity.
Who's talking? Because I can't see.
Oh, sorry, my name's Jim Smedley. I live on Midway Avenue.
Hi, Jim.
We've met before.
Yeah, sorry. Just
thank you for coming to our Spring Fest. But here's my question. We spent an hour at least, I think, at the most recent Woodpark Events Committee, I think it was, discussing that we weren't going to rejuvenate on its 10th anniversary, the welcoming flower mural. And so my suggestion is, and I almost raised this with Damon, but if we can get your shoulder to the wheel and Kiewit to do something for this company, this community that has been so disrupted. And it's,
so we're going.
It's 4 yards of asphalt to redo that intersection. So the involved community members, like community wins, we get to put our mural back up. We'd appreciate your help. Kiewit gets to do something very helpful for the community. They're going to have the equipment there. They're going to have asphalt coming up the yin yang. Seems like an easy win-win-win for people.
So Teresa, The challenge is that the quality of the asphalt over the last number of years has been deteriorating quite substantively.
Oh,
And
yes, I've gone to visit it, and looked at it.
Yeah, it's quite, so the asphalt itself is pitted. So then, the paint doesn't hold and stick as long as it used to. So, shall we say, people have lost the will to paint a mural for 4 months of goodness.
Yeah, and we've had comments that said it's like painting gravel.
Yes,
So, so Jim's talking about getting a skiff of asphalt. I mean, even being able to, I mean, we have so many road closures, but if we just hot sealed the intersection 3 weeks
Mhm.
beforehand, that could do it, it's just. And at this point, in the distant future, we'll have many intersections with lovely fresh asphalt all along Byron that we could do this, but there's no point touching any other intersection for quite some time until a lot of this construction work is done, so.
well, it's an interesting idea, Jim and Ian, because when the city does a street, I mean, they don't do just the intersection. I took a look at, there's, it's pretty bumpy, the same quality of bumpiness on most of Ancaster. So it's you don't just do that intersection. I don't think the city would work that way. They would repave a road. So, but I did ask for it to be put on the list, and I haven't got a response back. I went right to the manager and said, look, this is getting ridiculous. But I'm looking to see if they responded to me, and I have not seen it. So I'm gonna push on that again.
Normally we do it in June or September. October. So I mean, there's still some time to maybe like a solution could be found, but for instance, using a leaf blower and brushing it out isn't going to solve the pitted nature of this asphalt. Like it's just not going to receive paint well.
So just to be clear, Jim's proposal is got a bunch of paving machines down on Woodruff and Richmond. Can we not get a little bit of that up on certain section of Catherine's machines and the equipment and the product, it's going to be readily available
within 3 weeks' time.
Yeah. Well, no, they're gonna be there. They're not gonna be doing the asphalt until they've got the bridge out, right? It's not 3 weeks time. It's gonna be 5 weeks time, but still, I mean, I've worked on lots of construction projects. I'm a retired hydrogeologist, geotechnical engineer. I go out and abuse all the guys working in the tunnel, for a whole week and then buy them pizza from Moe's Famous Pizza. So, whatever. I think it's just a little positive. Like it'd be greatly appreciated of you for the community, Teresa. I think, although it's hard to find appreciation for Kiewit, given all the stuff going on, but there's that too. And we get to put the flower mural back on Flower Avenue.
We have a question in the back.
Yes, I live on 420 Ancaster, right in the Flower Street. There are more people, when you paint that thing, who's gonna pay for that? How do we benefit by it? I'm not sure I will see my street back and keep it clean. That's my opinion.
Well,
But they write it in the day and night.
I think Teresa has supported that in the past.
That'd be my opinion. I'm not sure to see the lines where the kids have to cross. They go in the middle of the thing, walk out the place. And the city paints the lines everywhere, right, front one. No problem. But with that thing there, kids skip in the middle of the road. To me, as a part of my concern, people want to move, but I'm not a 10 minutes by speed. Right, the speed. Yeah, right. Even people that go around there. I don't know if it's really beneficial to anybody.
Thanks.
Hi, Michael.
Councilor Kavanaugh, I would suggest before you consider seeing if they're gonna repave Ancaster, they might want to look at the water service on that street because apparently the water pressure is depressingly low. It's a 55-year-old line.
Yep.
And it drips out of my tap and it's a brand new house.
That's right. Even I would both ready the same thing. Yep.
So before you clean the surface, look at what's underneath it.
Yeah.
Well, I
So
would
you-
suggest that we're at 4:38 or 8:38. We still have a lot of meeting to do. So I would suggest that Ian, take it away.
Okay, thank you, Teresa, for your time.
My
Pleased
pleasure.
you were able to join us, and it's funny, I now see you more riding down my street than I normally do, so. Or I
the
used to do,
Yeah, at all crazy hours.
yeah,
That was always great to see you. Take care.
thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
So on to President's report, year in review. Just, it's just reflecting on the whole point of the community association is to help build and support communities. And so the way I see it, we kind of do it in a number of different ways. We run community building events, such as the mural on Flower Street, the holiday gifting, movie in the parks, Spring Fest, the park cleanup. Those are all the fun sort of social elements that we do. We're also involved with advocacy. We've had the provincial member of parliament, 2 different ones, come and speak to our association. And Teresa's been out, I don't know, maybe 3 times a year. If she's still there. Anyways, not an infrequent guest, and certainly Kev has come a number of times to provide updates as well. And a big part of municipal life, certainly from a community point of view, is around traffic and development. We've worked with the councillor to the neighborhood was made into 30K speed limit area. Parking restrictions were added to the to lawn between Edgeworth and Richmond Road. Through community traffic studies, Woodlawn received speed humps. And and following up out of that, they put a radar gun collecting speed information on Woodlawn. So on April 6th of this year, it was a Thursday, more than 499 people did greater than 30K an hour. So 56% of the people were doing more. And this area is right by the speed hump. So the speed hump says do 20. And, my VW wagon does not like going much over 20, hitting those speed humps. So I don't know how people are driving so fast on our roads, but, and coming out of that, David just posted something about traffic and speeding. It's going to be an ongoing concern as we have more and more people in the neighborhood. If you look at the park at New Orchard in the evenings, there are so many young kids, and there really is, in my mind, a number of younger families moving into the neighborhood. Even though we don't have a school, I think because there's that value proposition, because there isn't a school in this neighborhood, that this is what people can afford. I need a house, this is what I can get. So anyways, we'll be working more on that in the future. On the development side, Lincoln, there's the city proposal study around the Lincoln Fields Transit Secondary Study. That's kind of stalled out. I'm not sure where things are at. It last met prior to the fall municipal election. A big part of it has been evolved into connectivity in and around that Carling Bridge and the Lincoln Field Transit Station. And so, of course, Royal Can's development site is, it's in the hands of Royal Can. They have big plans which will span over a 20-year process. 1047 Richmond Road, which a number of people in the community wrote to the councillor about. That's the development site for the former Metro Chrysler. I sat in a call for, I'll never get those 5 hours back of my life for a pre-conference meeting, Ontario Land Tribunal. It was then kicked into a deferral where the city wanted to bundle the 6 other official plan amendment appeals that were in process. And so if you go to the Ontario Land Tribunal website, it will just show you that there was a meeting that was proposed and it was canceled, and a proposed meeting and it was canceled, and it won't tell you when the next meeting is. The counselor, when I saw her a couple of weeks ago, told me that it's now going to be in October. Now the challenge is that the city at that first meeting, their legal position was that the proposal for 1047 Richmond Road couldn't go ahead because it would need an official plan amendment. But because they just received a new official plan that repealed and replaced the last official plan, that meant that there's a 1-year reprieve from listening to official plan amendments, which the site at 1047 Richmond Road would need. However, by the time the two parties have kicked the can down the road, it will be a year since the official plan went through, which means the city will then have to argue the case on merit, which is that the proposal is too big and out of character and doesn't meet the capacity of the local community to absorb it, because they're not the only development site. So if everyone got to kick 2 times higher, there wouldn't be any sewer water capacity for the 6th and 7th development site. So we'll see how this transpires, and we'll keep you notified about that. I mean, at the end of the day, I think when I first joined the board 5 years ago, I'll just say I think the #1 issue remains the #1 issue, which is our community's ability to gain access to public amenity space. And we just need to grow and build public amenity space. If we're going to add 4 times the number of households per block, that means there's 4 times less community space for you to enjoy and access. So at some point, we have to start building into that well. It builds communities, it builds mental health, it builds resilience, it builds neighborhoods. If we don't have more green space, access to green space, smarter green space, and that's why as it might sound ridiculous, but at the bottom of Edgeworth at Richmond Road is 3 lots owned by the city. That's a brownfield. If we can convert that into a dog run, we will have built community amenity space. The reason why a dog run makes sense is because the safety standards for a brownfield for a play structure in humans, I think, is significantly higher. And the last time I looked, the city doesn't like spending money. So, or spending money on us. I've now spent 3 terms of president. I will gladly spend 1 more term or 2 more terms sitting at the other end of the table. And but at different times, there's stuff that you want to jump out and try and address, and there's some things where it's kind of overwhelming on how you take on an issue that, for instance, the gentleman that lives at Midway in Ancaster and has the display in front of his house. I mean, he's one of our neighbors. We represent him too. It's a weird menagerie of whatever. Is it art?
It's traffic calming.
Is it? Is it?
Well, it's proved that.
It's either traffic calming or traffic distraction, but and so I've had discussions with people. I've talked to the gentleman. He's a nice enough guy. I think if we all spent more time talking to our neighbors, we'd shall we say, find some better ways to kind of resolve some issues. And there's a really interesting Netflix show. It's something along the Battle of Christmas Lights, and it's about this family that moves into a neighborhood in Utah. And it is the most absurd situation of a community association being sued because they're anti-Christian or something. But if we all had a couple of conversations about some of this stuff, I'm sure we could get around to closer to a sweet spot. I'm happy to take any questions. As you might have noticed, neither Damon or the counselor told you when LMT was going to be finished. The official line is November 26th, and I will tell you that don't count on it until spring of 27, because when they say finish, they mean Kev turns it over to the city. That doesn't mean that you're going to drop money in at Lincoln Fields and go for a ride downtown. That just means that the city now has multiple months of testing, and based around stage one, they got to test more. So
I don't have a question. I just have a thank you for your 3 years, president, and to move us along.
I appreciate David has a very focused mind, and so David's
I'm
gonna
not on the agenda.
Does anyone have any questions? Like, is there some things that you would like your board to be more focused on at the next year? In the newsletter, we suggested there's a whole bunch of events and ideas we had about coming activities we could do. All I can say is if more people contribute, we'll be able to provide a richer experience. Hi, Val.
I think you do a really good job. The board has done a good job in having the interest of the community and in having the events go on to keep us all, help with everybody's mental health during the pandemic and whatnot. And it's good that I find that Teresa and Damon and Jamie Robinson are very good at working on solutions to things that come up. So don't always want to engage the board on that, but my main concern is always been like the traffic going through, especially like I have grandkids, right?
Yeah.
Dogs and everything, and everybody zips down Edgeworth, and then nobody stops at that stop sign to go right on to Vaughn. Except for and then some people drive through the stop sign to try to get out to Richmond and up. Believe me, my job was on the pavement whenever that I saw that woman drive down the side.
Right.
But with intensification, there's more vehicles, and you brought up the point of car sharing. There's multi-residential, 16 condo people that basically become a parking spot for visitors. And then everybody parks from either the community housing or from condos or from people visiting along Edgeworth there. And it's just we're turning into a parking lot. in our community, and I think we need to be more focused on, we're in the middle of transit, like, we've got
the,
easily accessible transit. You know, traffic calming measures, you know, and going down Hartley, between Midway and Richmond, that's pothole,
yeah,
Oh, heaven.
well, I don't know, and that manhole looks like it's gonna collapse at right in the intersection there, so I don't know, you know, like.
We-
Like normally I would just do a 311 request, even though I don't live there.
right, yeah, so. I always thought that the closure, so part of the stage 2 LRT process and kind of the post construction. Hartley is closed at Richmond. And Richardson is closed at Richmond, and that little space that was Richardson will be made green, just like the end of Byron will be at Woodruff. I always thought when this detour associated with the excavation for Richardson and Richmond was done, that's when Hartley was going to be closed, and then now it looks like it might not. It will be closed at some point. It's part of the agreements, but
They've been saying that for years.
yeah,
They were gonna close it.
Yeah, but I live on that section
okay,
and I find it really congested.
Yeah. it's okay. I can hear you.
It's very congested.
Right.
And with the community housing right across the street and people parking like.
Yeah.
It's
I
just-
don't know, well,
Well, and there's the
You know what ended up getting tons of potholes there? Because Rogers people that used to live in that.
Yes.
That 6 Rogers truck, they moved out. Thank
Yes.
God. They're off the street.
yeah.
I think they were making a lot of those potholes there
Well, if the
because of
traffic
those
is
stupid
traffic,
vans. parked
Yeah,
there.
but there's
yeah, it's congested. That's why I'm hoping they leave it open for Hartley to be able to get out.
well, it's meant to be closed, and I
I
just
know.
assume whenever it gets closed, then they'll because that is, I think, the worst potholed street or potholed section. Not just in the neighborhood, I think in the city. I can't think of a street that looks worse. Any place.
Is there a way of making them priority? I just submitted a 311, like I did it online.
Right.
Request, but I don't know if there's a way of elevating it, but.
All I can say is the councillors used to have more pull. And they could affect various smaller projects within their neighborhood. In the last council, it would seem that our councillor didn't get along very well with the mayor, and so I think we always got third place. So, well, Teresa, is that a fair statement that Jim was punitive? Okay. Anyway, so.
What? No, I'm not comfortable with that statement. I mean, there wasn't a lot of projects, and you'd have to give me an example because the only examples I saw were in terms of, yeah, there's some, I guess, all right, there's some, but
I think the bigger question is, though, how do we get some,
On Hartley the pothole.
Yeah, so I just assumed Hartley could be reconditioned whenever it's closure and end state of LRT is
And all
done.
of too long, not just that one section.
Well,
Those are all the way up.
I will say that all the roads in Woodpark are deteriorating at a faster pace than normal, in part because we are also experiencing a higher traffic load because we have many 1-ton and half-ton trucks with trailers driving all through our neighborhood on a consistent basis. So all our roads are deteriorating, at a faster rate than, say, regular residential traffic patterns of the past. So. Anyway, I'll send you a note to Teresa and I'll include a picture so staff can enjoy the quality of the potholes.
Yeah.
They, it
Keep
is,
reporting them. I mean, one thing you gotta do is keep reporting potholes.
right,
If
But I
if
will-
you grumble about them and don't report them, ain't nothing's gonna happen. I have done some on my way home from, on my bike ride. I
right.
noted where they were. I sent it to 311 when I got home. It got done within a week. It was less than a week.
I will say that last fall's resurfacing was the most extensive I've seen in the neighborhood for many years, and many bad spots were improved.
And I also wanted to say, Teresa, thank you so much for your communications during the ice storm. I thought, like, you know what, like, you communicated more, I didn't hear anything or see anything from our except, but I thought that, you know, I felt reassured in our neighborhood that you were looking after the interests of all of your constituents in the board. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I have great staff. They worked all weekend.
Yeah,
Agreed.
well, it's evident.
Yeah, on Easter weekend to get that out, but I'm very blessed. They saw it was important and they
We have one more question.
Yeah, I'm thinking with respect to the speeding on the streets within the neighborhood.
Right.
What does it take to get one of those signs that flashes people to actually speed? That does tend to work.
It's a cost. Pick your street. I can't do it on every street. Because I've come across this before. I can't give it to everybody. It just doesn't, they just don't give us enough money. We got it, we're getting it on Woodruff, of course, and you know that it's been lowered to 40 permanently. The speed. So because it only was 40 during school hours, and they had to take that signage down because now they've got the speed cameras coming in. So we changed it to 40 all the time. So I think people will slow down once they get the first couple of tickets.
Michael just wondered how much the flashy display radar displays are.
How much?
Yes,
Oh, I have to look. I should know it. Marlene usually looks after it for me. I can get back to you on that. It's a few thousand.
Oh, you know, we're not painting the road this year.
Yeah.
Okay, I can offer one, but I can't put it on every single street. Pick a street.
okay, well, we'll the new board after our election can have fun in the late May and pick something.
I'm looking at Lockhart too, because complaints, because Lockhart's being used as an alternative to Woodruff, and there's 2 schools there. So that was another one that came in that's requested. I know that's not your neighborhood, but it's you know, just gives you an example of what I get asked. So if you have a priority, you think of this as the one. We did put speed bumps on Woodruff. We've, you know, we're trying to, you know, get at everything. But pick something if you see it as a priority.
Those cameras along Richmond and then along Maryville Road and everything, that people just go fast, you know, like they see their speed, I don't see that it works. So I think the notices about the cameras were, you know, on Woodruff. I find that they're very effective at slowing people down, but whenever they had the lights with your speed, people, they just ignored it.
Okay.
Needs to be a photo radar, whoop, there's your license plate, there's your $110 fine.
Yeah, but
I got one of those on Smythe Road.
but those systems cost a lot, and our neighborhood streets don't have that volume unless Byron became like a drag strip. You know.
The priority is schools. you'll notice that every single one of them is at a school.
Yeah.
We got, the first was D Roy, and I didn't pick it, the city does. The city goes across the city, and the first one was Bayshore, and they've made a fortune on that.
Right.
But so, and the next was D Roy, and now we're getting Woodruff Avenue. Doing pretty good for getting speed cameras in Bay Ward, but every one of them's in front of a school. That was the criteria.
Okay, we gotta move on to our election. It's getting
Okay.
close to the
I
end of
think I
it.
better go. I'm just holding things up. It's
Okay,
been a long day. Okay, take care, guys.
okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
All right, bye.
Come over there.
Okay,
You collect your money, I have to go.
There's the donation box right there.
Oh, I'm not.
We have two orders of business for the to conclude the meeting. We have to approve our minutes from last AGM. Do we have a mover to approve the minutes? Don, do we have a seconder? Ian, all right, approved. Show of hands? Approved. And for the final item on the agenda today, we have to elect a new board. Currently, we have 8 members of the board and 12 positions. 8 members are standing for re-election. They are Michael Boone, Joan Harrison, Tanya Krupnicki, Larry Liddell, excuse me, both who are absent. Ian, Sue Milburn Hopwood, Jennifer Plank, who I believe just left,
yes, you did.
and Donald Wood.
Someone should have tried it.
So we have 4 vacancies. Is there anyone in the room or online that would like to volunteer to be a member of the board? I'm looking at you, Jim. Okay, so we've got
Jim Smedley.
and online, we've got Wayne Daly, one of my neighbors. Wayne, are you interested?
No, but I appreciate the invitation. I'm not interested, but I appreciate the heck out of what you guys do. Thank you.
Is there anybody else who wants to throw their hand up? Oh, this happened to me last year as well. Whereas, we were almost at a full board and I was planning to resign. And I continued to plan to resign. But we don't have a full board.
Look at you, being conscientious. And
Well, I still plan to be actively involved. I just hate these meetings.
you know what? Become the president and then bend a new format for the meeting.
No. Sue's gonna be the new president. Which, once we elect the board at our next meeting, we will elect a secretary, a president, and a vice president. That will happen on, I think, May 18th. And then it will be publicized on our website and through social media. So,
I'll just encourage anybody else who's sitting on the fence. I don't know when I first joined under Larry's invitation, and it's not that painful. It's a great way to get to know neighbors and do some good stuff for the community. So if you're thinking or want to contact David later and say, hey, I'll stand.
yeah, because we can appoint to the board for the rest of the term with a majority.
Due to the empty spots, and you can also join the committees. The outreach committee is often the one people want to be on because it's the fun stuff.
Offer them the hydro packages to join.
Yeah, Jim's definitely getting one. Is that a request?
No, I don't want one. I've been on the board. I'm on the board for association.
Okay.
I don't have a band.
Well, show of hands, are we electing the 8, 9, and I guess I'll throw my hat back in the ring again this year. So we've got 10. All right, I move that we adjourn the meeting. All right, we're closed. Thank you very much for your participation.
We gave it golden and thumbs up. Yeah, thank you, David.
Maybe it's time to go. Gotta get across that section there.